Let's talk about some of the important topics that have been discussed in this Down to Earth edition. The first focuses on chinar tree preservation, and this is one of the important topics for Jammu Kashmir because these roots go deeper and prevent soil erosion. Also, these trees are known for preventing air pollution and filtering the pollutants. This leaves actually grow red and then yellow, and therefore create a very beautiful autumn figure as well. But recently, we have seen a huge number of trees being felling down, and this has been one of the causes of concern for preservation. The next is climate change. The regions of North America and Europe have seen nearly 1,000 times more higher anthropogenic emissions, and as a result higher temperature. The China's rising temperature have made 50 times more likable by the anthropogenic effect, and this is again a major cause of concern for the global records of higher temperatures. In US-Mexico border, the temperature rising up to 50 degrees Celsius. Also, we have seen that there have been major oceanic phenomena. For example, Atlantic meridional overturning circulation moves the warm water from the tropics to the Atlantic Ocean, and this could collapse between 2025 and 2029. The reason being the hot water is taken from the equatorial region to the polar areas, and this creates a uniform circulation, does not allow too cold weathers in the polar areas, in the American region, we can say. And if this is reached, there would be a tipping point. Tipping point is a point where the ecology actually automatically starts to disrupt. That means when we talk about, let's say, an example of Amazon rainforest, what would happen when we are cutting trees at a point? The ecosystem would become or reach the tipping point. That means beyond which, even if you are not cutting a single tree, it would start to impact the ecosystem automatically. And the same is happening with the tipping point being reached because of this anthropogenic effects on the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. Now this has reached its tipping point. The Amazon rainforest, as I already discussed, the West Antarctic ice sheet, not getting transferred northward of the Atlantic meridional circulation. The same has been seen in the Sahel region, where the establishment of monsoon is getting hurt, and it also creates a domino effect. That means one impacting the other tipping system. So if there is an Atlantic meridional circulation reaching its tipping point, it would affect the Amazon rainforest tipping point, it would affect the Sahel forest tipping point, or the monsoon tipping point. Globally, the rice and the wheat supply is at risk because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine ongoing. Now, India decided to ban the non-basmati wheat rice temporarily because we actually account for 40% of the rice exports, and India exports to nearly 140 countries, mainly to the regions of Malaysia and Singapore. There have been supply shocks, and this has led to price rises in the countries of Vietnam and Thailand, which are supplying and exporting the rice. Also, there are other countries like Africa and West Asia which are totally dependent on imports. The stability of energy is another important concern. Niger's president has actually talked about the quarter of uranium needed to fuel the nuclear power, mainly in the France, from this region, and this has again created one of the conflicts in the region. Coral reefs have been affected because of the plastic pollution. Corals are one of the areas where most of the tourists visit. The deeper corals are further higher affected by the plastics, the wrappers, the bottles, and the fishing gears, and more plastic in the bottom areas have been affecting. The most affected site is seen near Africa in Comoros, where nearly 84,000 plastic items per square kilometer are being found. Now, there have to be various solutions. For example, waste workers in Ayankotra village in Tamil Nadu have talked about the garbage to burn the non-recyclable waste of plastic cutlery to keep the surroundings clean. There have been Swachh Bharat Mission Grameen steps which have been brought assistance for reducing the Waste Management and State and Central Control Board has brought in strict action for low micron plastic bags or the single use plastics in the society. Now also we have seen that paddy saplings in the regions of India have been affected because of floods in the regions of Punjab and Haryana, which have reduced the production significantly, and the investments have been rising higher. There have been impacts on the bunds which have been created, and bund repair is one of the major things that have to be taken into account. Also, the forest conservation is another topic of discussion, where we have brought in ideas to regulate the use of forest land for non-forest activity under 8 amendments in 1980 Act. There have been several causes of concern related to one, Samvardhan Abhiyan. Also, it excludes the non-Hindi speaking citizens. We also focus on the exploitation which has been done in the northeast. There have been the Dilution Law Act, which has to be taken into account for creating additional equivalent carbon dioxide by 2030, and forest clearances to be required for the same. Also, there have to be clarifications on the various aspects. For example, small forest, which is the chota jhad, creating carbon sinks, demolishing the areas, indigenous rights, and so on. One very important topic is Vibrio falcinis, and this is a marine bacteria which is seen through the raw shellfish being consumed. The first case was recorded in the United States in 1976. It is spreads through eel, also commonly reported in South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, Mexico, but these people consume oysters mainly during winters, where this bacterial growth is less. But in other parts of the world, this consumption is throughout the season. If the temperature reaches 20 degree or higher and has low salinity, then this grows at a very fast pace, and the infections have been seen in various areas to the people who are consuming seafood. This infection has been moving forward, and there have been cases recorded across the globe. Higher number of cases in United States, China, Japan, and Korea have been seen with a very high numbers, but Japanese actually have been better in this case, as I said, because they consume oysters only during the winters where the growth is less, and this has actually helped them to keep the extent of infection at a slower pace. Okay, the next important topic that we would discuss today is focusing on the idea of space, Chandrayaan being entering into the moon's orbit, and this is a demonstration of India's technological skill. Now there have been various issues related to it, but besides that, we also need to focus on the developments which have taken place in other fields. For example, dairy. Now the lumpy skin diseases has led to nearly death of 2 lakh cattle across India, and low milk production. Now amidst the COVID outbreak, artificial insemination ratio significantly declined. So if we see the production, it has increased significantly, but the cases of artificial insemination has increased again at a great pace with the wholesale price index. But if we look at the fodder price, that has increased tremendously. If at this pace the fodder price increases, this has become actually double since the last 10 years, and this would have a significant impact onto the dairy industry. Now we need to understand that when the crossbred kettles are being produced, the first artificial insemination is done after 16 to 17 months. If it fails, after 21 days, the second round is done. The cow gives birth in 10 months, and then it starts to produce milk. Lactation period is 10 months, after which the first 4 months is the peak period, and next 6 months is the reduced yield period that you can see. Now there are losses in short term and long term. Long term, there is a loss of potential calf because of artificial insemination. Also, the average milk yield from a calf which is born naturally during the productive life is lower by 2 liters a day, and this would have a significant impact. Now there have been various stress factors which have led to artificial insemination. Higher population pressure is one of the factors. Now the states have been affected by hunger, frustration, aggression, and this has led to higher role of artificial insemination and the impact on the total production. The next is e-waste management and its draft rules. Similarly, the draft rules for cruelty towards animals have been released. Road to city cool, that is urban India, how to keep the buildings cool, which we have covered in the last Yojana itself, is one of the important aspects. So where we need to take into account the urban morphology, aspect ratio, sky view factor, blue green infrastructure, the floor area, and the floor space index. Now, the world's largest permafrost crater, the Bata Kika crater, has been expanding in the terms of the permafrost, and this is seen in the regions of Russia up to 100 meters deep, and this has seen or affected the pipeline disruption in the region. Also, there has been domestic use for the world's first commercial vaccine against Africa's swine fever, which has been approved in Vietnam. Then there have been various issues related to the project Cheetah, which have been brought in light, and the impact of the survival of the cheetahs which have been brought to India. Those are some of the important topics that we have discussed in this edition of Down to Earth. We do cover Down to Earth summary every 15 days, so stay tuned on the channel for further updates. The handout for this lecture would be available on Exam Race Current Affairs section, so don't miss. Thanks for joining in.